Recent economic news has been dominated by the introduction of significant trade tariffs in April 2025. While most news outlets have concentrated on international trade and potential global economic impacts, there's a key question that's important for anyone buying, selling, or considering a move to the Los Angeles South Bay. What does this mean locally? Does this affect our local real estate market, and how? So I'm Steve Enchin, your source for real estate news and information here in the Los Angeles South Bay. Now, first of all, this video and my real estate practice are non-political. This video is not going to judge the tariffs, but only provide economic theory insight into how the tariffs might possibly affect our local housing market. And like many of you, I tend to be analytical and data-driven and focused on information. So, like many of you, I am trying to make sense of how this will all play out. So if you're data-centric, I hope this video will be useful. If you're new to economics, I'm going to try to use simple concepts to give you a leg up on understanding how this could all play out. So, tariffs, by definition, are taxes on imported goods typically implemented to protect domestic industries or influence trade balances. However, their effects often ripple broadly across economies, so they can influence prices, financial markets, and consumer confidence. So in the past, we've seen tariffs contribute to higher costs for consumer goods and increased volatility in financial markets, like today, but they could also influence local housing markets like ours. How? Well, the South Bay region of Los Angeles has a uniquely interconnected economy. We're known as part of Silicon Beach. Our community is home to a high concentration of technology companies, white-collar professionals, and affluent neighborhoods, but at the same time, we're also connected to our ports. And many of these port workers and those in the import-export businesses have homes in our community. So economic factors that impact employment levels, borrowing costs, or consumer confidence can quickly translate into shifts within our local housing market. So in this video, we're going to explore carefully sourced information and expert perspectives on exactly how these new tariffs might influence, first, interest rates and mortgage lending availability, inflation, especially rising costs for goods and services, stock market volatility like today, and shifts in investment strategies, employment stability with a really particular focus on the local technology sector we have here, and finally, what all these factors could potentially mean for housing demand and home prices here in the South Bay. So the objective today is not to speculate. I'm not a fortune teller, and any real estate agent who claims to know what will happen in the housing market in the future is a fool. But I just want to inform you clearly and objectively about how external economic events could realistically influence our local market. So let's get started by unpacking exactly what these tariffs are and how they typically affect the broader economy and why that matters specifically here. So one of the immediate and perhaps surprising effects of recent tariff announcements has been a noticeable decline in mortgage rates, at least for the short term. So here's what's happening. Investors who are wary of potential equity market instability, like today, have started moving money out of stocks and into safer investments, specifically government and high-quality corporate bonds. So why does this matter for home buyers in the South Bay? Because mortgage rates closely follow the yield on the 10-year Treasury bonds. So when bond prices rise due to increased demand, the yields and consequently the mortgage rates go down. So simply put, this investor behavior is creating a brief window of opportunity for lower borrowing costs, making mortgages temporarily more affordable. So, for example, if you are shopping for a $2 million home in Manhattan Beach, even a slight reduction in your mortgage rate, say from 6.5% down to 6.2%, could save you hundreds of dollars each month and thousands of dollars over the life of the loan. So in markets like the South Bay, where home prices are higher, these smaller changes in rates have a much bigger impact. But it's important to be cautious. This dip in mortgage rates might not last. So while lower rates create opportunities right now, there's potential volatility ahead. So economic forces like inflation and the Federal Reserve's response might soon push rates higher again, reversing this short-term advantage. So if you're thinking about buying a home in the South Bay or even refinancing your current loan, this moment may offer valuable, though potentially fleeting, chance to secure more favorable financing. All right. So next, we're going to explore the other side of this equation. So how inflation driven by tariffs could soon lead to higher interest rates, affecting affordability across the South Bay market. So the new tariffs mean higher prices for imported goods. So from household appliances to cars and construction materials. So when those import costs rise, businesses typically pass these increases on to consumers. And the result is, well, inflation. Economists are already forecasting inflation could surpass 4% over the next coming months. And that's a significant increase from recent averages. So when inflation rises, the Federal Reserve typically responds by increasing interest rates to stabilize the economy and keep prices in check. And here's why this matters for you. As the Fed increases rates, borrowing becomes more expensive across the board, and that includes mortgage loans. So that temporary rate relief we just talked about could quickly disappear, and that could leave homebuyers facing notably higher monthly payments later on. So for example, modest rate jumps, say from just 6.2% to 6.8% on a $2 million home in, Redondo Beach. That could mean an increase of hundreds of dollars per month, adding up to significant costs over time. So in the South Bay, where home prices are already elevated, even small rate hikes can push potential buyers out of the market completely, shrinking demand and cooling off price appreciation. So for homeowners considering selling soon, rising interest rates could mean fewer qualified buyers, longer times on the market, and perhaps even the need for price adjustments. So in short, while today's mortgage rates might feel like an unexpected gift, be cautious. Inflation pressures and potential rate hikes could soon change the picture dramatically. So next, let's look at how the increased construction costs from these tariffs could further influence South Bay's housing market. So the recent tariffs have made imported building materials like lumber, steel, aluminum, and finished products like fixtures significantly more expensive. And this isn't just a problem for new homes. So renovation projects will also face budget challenges, and that's potentially deterring homeowners from upgrading or expanding their properties. So what does that mean for you, the South Bay homeowner or potential buyer? Well, simply put, fewer new homes being built, developers facing higher costs may pause or even cancel construction projects, tightening an already constrained housing market. So Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, and Redondo Beach are known for their limited space and high demand. So any reduction in new construction could amplify the housing shortage, potentially driving prices even higher in the short term. But other areas in the South Bay, like Torrance, Lawndale, Hawthorne, or Carson, that do have traditional home builders planning new projects may see those plans put on hold. But there's a flip side to consider. If construction slows considerably, neighborhoods could see fewer modernized homes hitting the market, making fully updated properties even more desirable. So existing homeowners with recently renovated or well-maintained homes may find themselves in an advantageous position, benefiting from higher demand and potentially higher sales prices. But buyers looking for affordable entry points or properties needing upgrades could face some significant hurdles because increased renovation costs may also discourage those buyers from purchasing fixer-uppers, and then that further narrows affordable options in the South Bay. So in short, rising construction costs will shape housing availability and affordability in our communities, potentially making an already tight market even tighter. So now let's explore another key risk, the possibility of a broader economic slowdown impacting buyer demand here in the South Bay. So historically, economic uncertainty can significantly impact consumer confidence. So with the recent tariffs triggering volatility in the stock market and inflation beginning to edge higher, there's growing speculation among economists about a possible slowdown or even recession. While no one can predict the exact outcome, it's important to understand how these scenarios have historically impacted real estate. So if consumers become uncertain about the future, major financial decisions like buying or selling a home may be postponed or reconsidered altogether. And this hesitation can lead to longer market times and softer demand, especially for a market like the Los Angeles South Bay due to our higher home prices. And if businesses feel squeezed by higher operational costs, layoffs could follow, especially in sectors closely linked to trade, such as tech startups, maybe relying on imported hardware, logistics firms, and even local businesses dependent on consumer spending. So reduced employment and hiring freezes could decrease buyer pools, and particularly among professionals who drive much of our local market. However, it's also crucial to remember that during periods of economic uncertainty, certain buyers become more active, looking for opportunities. So reduced competition can mean negotiating power for buyers with stable finances, especially those able to secure favorable mortgage rates during the initial phase of lower rates driven by investor bond buying. So when tariffs go up, businesses pay more for the imported goods and components they need, and those higher costs, well, they don't just vanish. Businesses have to deal with them somehow. So for some companies, it might mean slightly raising prices, but others, especially smaller or mid-sized companies, often face tougher choices. And those choices can include cutting costs, pausing expansion plans, or even reducing their workforce. So now let's think about our local economy here in the Los Angeles South Bay. We have lots of innovative tech startups, aerospace companies, and digital media firms. So many of these businesses rely heavily on global supply chains for things like computer hardware, electronics, or specialized components, or even things like textiles, clothing, or crafts. So when the cost of these materials suddenly goes up, because of tariffs, these companies can find themselves in a tight spot financially. So other businesses like our boutiques and restaurants, they may find their supply costs increase as well with the same challenges and difficult choices they need to make. So who might feel the pinch most directly? Employees in maybe hardware engineering, supply chain management, manufacturing roles, even certain product management positions could be especially vulnerable. So if companies feel pressured enough, it could mean hiring freezes, smaller bonuses, delayed raises, or in the worst cases. And here's where it ties into our local housing market. Job stability and confidence directly affect whether people feel comfortable buying homes, upgrading, or even downsizing. So when job security gets shaky, potential home buyers might decide to put their plans on hold, and current homeowners might reconsider upsizing. So this isn't meant to sound alarmist, but it's essential to recognize how interconnected our economy and housing market are. So keeping an eye on local employment trends, especially in our tech and aerospace businesses, can give us important clues about what might come next in our real estate market. So we've covered a lot of ground today. Tariffs, mortgage rates, construction costs, employment impacts, and the broader economic outlook. So now let's simplify it and pull it all together. In the short term, the financial uncertainty from the tariffs has led investors away from stocks into safer investments, temporarily lowering mortgage rates. For Los Angeles South Bay home buyers who've been waiting to lock in a good rate, this could be an opportunity worth exploring. But keep an eye on the bigger picture. Rising inflation due to higher import costs might prompt the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates down the line. So higher mortgage rates could then limit affordability and soften demand, especially in higher price markets like ours. On the supply side, new tariffs could mean higher costs for construction materials, making new home developments more expensive and potentially leading to a tighter inventory of available homes. Fewer options on the market typically translate into stronger competition and sustained or increased prices. It's going to benefit current homeowners considering a sale. Economically, increased operational costs for local businesses, especially our tech companies and logistics firms that are heavily tied into international trade, could trigger some job reductions impacting the buying power of potential homebuyers. So our Silicon Beach's dynamic tech sector isn't immune. With startups and established tech firms, they're both vulnerable to these rising costs. So lastly, prolonged economic uncertainty could make both buyers and sellers hesitant. While some may pause their real estate decisions, opportunities often emerge during periods of disruption, especially for buyers with solid financial footing who can leverage uncertainty to secure attractive deals. So the South Bay remains a desirable place to live, and our local housing market is resilient. However, as these events unfold, staying informed about economic shifts and trends will help you make sound real estate decisions. So in the coming weeks, I'll continue tracking these developments closely, and if you're considering buying or selling in this changing market, or simply want to understand what it means for your specific situation, reach out. My contact information is back up on the screen. You can use the link down below below in the video description to book an instant appointment right on my calendar. And my goal is to keep you prepared and informed no matter what direction the market takes. So thank you for watching, and we will see you on the next video.